all my fellow Marvel fans. I'm Steven,
And I'm Todd.
and today we're going to be discussing episode 6 of WandaVision. There's a lot to talk about. Westview suddenly got a lot bigger. We'll explain what we mean by the end of this. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch that first because there are spoilers in this video because we're going to be talking about specific things from episode 6. Um, One of the things that I noticed mainly that's different about Westview this time around is that it was a Halloween episode, but there's all of a sudden a lot more kids walking around and a lot more families. It seems like there's a lot more people than we've seen in previous episodes. But I think it's unique that all of a sudden there's all these kids walking around. Like, where have they been this whole time? That like one of the main questions. Where have all
Yeah.
these people been? Have they kind of been like suppressed somewhere? Things like that.
And this
Uh,
whole this whole show they've been talking about for the children, and they finally got kids. Like Wanda finally had kids, and now a bunch of kids are just showing up randomly everywhere.
and
And
what's also
yeah.
curious is that they seem to be around the same age as Billy and Tommy, Wanda's
Mm-hmm.
Wanda's twins. So it's like they have all these kids to hang out with now. But where have they been? Where have
Yeah.
all these other families been too? Because we know there's at least 1,000 people, over 1,000 people. I think it
Mm-hmm.
said was the population,
Yeah. That's
and
what
how
Howard said.
they're all here all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something unique about this episode that we got to see. Is like now we're wondering where they've been all this time.
Yeah.
And even Pietro, who's now part of the show, Wanda's brother. If you saw the last episode, it's the Pietro Maximoff from the X-Men universe, not from Age of Ultron that we saw, because he be dead.
Exactly.
But Pietro basically was talking to Wanda about all these things. Like, he straight up knows that she's doing this stuff. He said he's kind of like proud of her for it or impressed with what she's done. He even asked her, "Where have you been keeping these kids all this time?" And
Mm-hmm.
like, have they been safely in their homes? Things like that. And that kind of shows he knows that she's doing this. And then she keeps asking him, why do you look different? She asks him all these questions too. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
here? Why do you look different?
Yeah.
All this other stuff.
And he keeps dodging the questions. There were at least two questions that he
Oh yeah,
dodged completely. He would either just bring up a new topic right out of the blue, or he would reflect it back at Wanda, and then she wouldn't be able to answer it. So then he wouldn't answer the question. So that brings some suspicion in on if this is actually Pietro or some person portraying Pietro.
yeah. Because he acted weird this whole, like, everything he said. Like, he told the kids, "Go raise hell, you little demon spawns," and all this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like, everything he said made it seem like he's not who he says he is.
Yeah,
And
that
he
quote.
he really acted strangely throughout this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. We'll probably get more into that a little bit later, but yeah, throughout the whole episode, everything he said seemed suspicious,
Yeah, and
or
that quote about the
even made
demon
Wanda
spawn.
question some things.
The quote about the demon spawn, like that goes to the one of the comic books where like Mephisto made them to be like his little
Exactly.
sidekicks. So there's also
So
that.
I'm assuming he's probably like Mephisto in disguise, trying to keep Wanda in this reality because she was starting to sort of break out of it herself when Vision started questioning her in the last episode and things like that. Like, she started losing control of this reality. So he probably had to step in, like, the Thanos moment, like, "I'll do it myself," and then like, he disguised himself as Pietro, but a different version of Pietro for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason.
Yep.
But there's also a moment where Wanda, just like with Vision, she saw the dead body of Pietro standing there instead of him, with the bullet holes and everything from Age of Ultron, but it's still this Pietro's face. So I'm wondering
Mm-hmm.
if she somehow brought in his like dead body, just like she did with Vision, and like kind of reanimated it, but it's also a different face for some reason. Like, I'm sure we'll find out why that is, but
Yeah.
I've heard all kinds of different theories from different channels and stuff like that too. But he's definitely, I definitely don't think he actually is, because even she doesn't seem to recognize him. She doesn't really acknowledge him as like her brother Piet. She asks him all these questions about their past, and
Yeah.
he, like you said, he just dodges the question and all this other stuff. It's definitely strange, and I don't think he is who he says he is, and we're gonna find that out probably really quickly, pretty soon, maybe next episode, episode after that. There's only 3 episodes left, I think.
Yeah.
They said it's supposed to be 9, so I hope we find that out soon because it's definitely suspicious. Just like Agnes, he's got that attitude like something's not right, and you can just tell that something's not right about him.
And while Pietro was talking to Wanda, he said he's no stranger to her and to anybody. But I think that is wrong because
Oh,
like he the fact that he brought that up though raises more suspicion for what he is actually going
see,
to be doing.
I think he was, because he was trying to get her to open up too. So I think by saying I'm no stranger and I'm not your husband, he was trying to tell her like you can confide in me, you can tell me what's wrong, and I'll listen. It's just like a brother would. Like I'm not some stranger you're talking to. But at the same time, I mean, he kind of is because you can tell she doesn't really know exactly what's going. Like she's still wondering, why is he here? Why does he have a different face? But she's not going to
Yeah.
come out and say it because it fits in with her reality that she's created, that he's here. So she doesn't want to question it. Like, okay, I'll just go with it. But once he starts asking her questions, it's like, that's where it's getting suspicious now. And he keeps all the stuff he keeps mentioning and things like that. Another big topic that occurs is Vision is like walking around town through the whole episode, and he's like, because I guess he told Wanda he was going to be part of like the neighborhood watch, but he lied to her because she finds that out when she talks to Herb a little bit later, like that Vision's not with him and stuff. And here, I guess Vision is actually going around sort of investigating, like trying to figure out, because he knows things aren't what they seem, so he's trying to figure all this stuff out. And he keeps running into all these strange things, like people are basically frozen in place, like they're
Mhm.
especially closer to the edge of town, like closer to the portal or the, I guess where the way the exit of the hex, I guess the
Yeah.
hexit. Um, that was lame. I know. But they're all frozen, standing in place, and this kind of confirms what happens to. I guess this kind of confirms how Wanda is able to control everybody. She's not necessarily. It's kind of like I mentioned this to Todd earlier when we were discussing it before this video.
Mhm.
It's kind of like NPCs in video games when they're not being used. I guess they're just kind of sitting outside the map until they can pop in for their scene that they're in. Even like in a movie, when somebody's not used, they kind of sit outside of the curtain or whatever, if they're on stage or in a movie or whatever, and then they
Yeah.
walk in when they're needed. So because she doesn't need these people right now for the scene that she's creating, I guess, in this Halloween, there's all these people with Halloween costumes and stuff on. It's like they were there and then they walked to the edge of town and out of Wanda's view, I guess, or out of her immediate area. So she just kind of pauses them there. That's what I got out of this. Like
Yeah,
she doesn't
definitely.
need them for this scene.
Mhm. And
So that kind of,
it's not like they're out of sight so they can still move around. It's they're out of sight, they're not being used, they're dormant. They don't move at all.
oh yeah, basically.
Like they have no control at all.
Yeah, like Vision tries to speak to them and they just don't say anything. They don't respond, except for when he finds Agnes.
Mhm.
She's in her car, like at the edge of town, just kind of sitting on this road.
Yep.
Because he kind of flies above the town. We saw that in the trailers too. He's like up above the town looking around and he sees her car there, goes down and he talks to her and she responds. But she's kind of like, she's confused, but she's still responding, which I find maybe she
Yes.
was acting, because she
Uh
kind of says she got lost, and Vision's like, "How did you get lost in the town you grew up in?" She couldn't find the town square or whatever she
yeah.
was looking for.
And either she was acting or like if she is Agatha and she's a witch and stuff, she is still kind of controlled by Wanda, but she's powerful enough to um, have the ability to talk even in the dormant state.
Right.
But like, I don't know if she's acting or if like that's just her
Because I
powers
think
and
she was
stuff.
putting on a
Yeah,
show for Vision, kind of. Because,
yeah,
but he kind of just like he did last week. He kind of, I guess, I don't know how to say it, like reanimated her, or like he touched her
yeah.
forehead and kind of got her to her normal self. I would imagine, rather than under the spell of Wanda, just like he did in the last episode with his coworker. Um, and then she's like, "Hey, you're an Avenger. You're Vision. Are you here to save us?" And he's like, "Yes, I am. But what's an Avenger?"
Yeah.
And that kind of shows, like, he doesn't. That kind of shows that why he doesn't know what's going on is because the Mind Stone was probably his memory chip. Like everything else that he was built up. Like I guess this kind of shows he could have been rebuilt after being
Yep.
destroyed by Thanos, but he wouldn't remember anything essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's how the Mind Stone kind of played in his body. And now that that's gone, Wanda was able to bring him back and put the pieces back together, but he doesn't remember anything.
But now, if he doesn't remember anything, like, did he remember anything with Wanda?
No, because he doesn't remember that he's dead. He doesn't even know that he's actually dead either. But uh, Agnes tells him, because she asked him, "Am I dead?" And he said, "No. Why would you ask that?" And she said, "Because you are. You're dead." And she repeats
Mm-hmm.
"dead" like 5 times for some
Yep.
reason.
Screaming.
Dead, dead,
Yeah.
dead. But then or because last week Vision uh, was arguing with Wanda, and he said, like, "I don't remember my life outside of Westview, like what's going on out there," and so he doesn't even remember. His memory was wiped. Basically, he pulled a C-3PO after he got the Mind Stone ripped out of him. He just like doesn't remember anything about his past life. Doesn't remember the Avengers, anything like that. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
once Agnes tells him that he's dead and he's an Avenger and all this other stuff, he tells her, "Well, I'm going to go see what I can do about I'm going to see if I can contact the world outside Westview, to see if I can get them to come in and help you." So he knows that they're trapped now at this
Yeah.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this was just a weird scene too. And then he like puts Agnes back to how she is, and she's just like, "Bye, neighbor," and all this stuff, and drives
Yeah.
away. Because she wasn't frozen though, like everybody else. That's why I think this was sort of an act to get Vision to like talk to her. And so like maybe she did help Wanda create all this, but she like lost control of Wanda or something, and now Wanda's like doing everything on her own. So even Agnes is trapped now or something.
Oh, yeah, and let me bring up this point. So before Agnes left, like when Vision first showed up, she wasn't moving at all in the car. Okay, and but she was able to talk. And then
Mhm.
after she got like reanimated and then back to the way she was before in the dormant state, she was able to drive the car away. But we didn't see her for the rest of the episode. So that means she
That's
wasn't
the thing.
needed for any of the scenes.
Exactly.
So how was she able to drive then?
That's a good point. So like
Exactly.
where did she go too? Because yeah, I don't think we saw her unless she was just in the background or something at the Halloween party thing that they had later on. But I don't
Well,
know.
she said she was
You're
going
right
there.
though. She drove away because she was looking for the Halloween party in town square, and then she drove away, but we don't see her
Yeah,
again.
we didn't see her
So like,
there.
where did she
That's
go? That's a
weird.
good point. Yeah. Okay. Now in the outside world, outside of Westview and everything else, we see Darcy, or Darcy Lewis and all them get confronted by Hayward, and he kind of kicks them out. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
"I don't think you're fit to run this operation anymore." He kind of like yelled at Monica, like about. He said, or I guess it's a good thing you weren't here when your mom or after your mom died, because I don't think you can handle this and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
He mentioned Carol Danvers, like that Monica's in communication with all these like super beings and stuff like that, so he doesn't trust her. So he kicks them out, and they sneak back in, and they find out through like hacking his computer that Hayward actually found a way to, I guess, sort of ping everyone's location inside
Mm-hmm.
Westview.
by tracking
Yeah.
Vision's vibranium.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. He was tracking Vision, like the decaying vibranium from Vision somehow, and
Yeah.
that was able to ping everyone else's location. Like there's little dots all over the screen and stuff like that. This actually happened before what we just mentioned, where he like found everybody at the edge of town, because to them, to Wu and them on the dots on the screen are all frozen there at the end of town, and then it showed that scene.
Yeah.
So like now Hayward knows probably how many people are in Westview, at least that Vision has come in contact with, and
Yeah.
I just don't know how he was able to do that. But
Well, I guess there's like since uh since Vision was created, I guess vibranium might have some oxidizing kind of state where like parts of it just fall off constantly.
I
So like
guess
maybe he
like
was able to trace those particles, the things separated from Vision, to kind of find a track, like
it
a
makes you
tracking
wonder
system
how, like, does he have some kind of drone like
in space
fly,
or something.
flying yeah, like in space out, oh, like away from where this would control, like, so if it flies in it's not gonna be a fit. Like I don't know how exactly he's able to do that, but
Yeah, because
they
if you're looking at the radar that they're showing, it's an above view. So like
yeah,
he has to have some sort of
shows the
satellite,
dots.
and that kind of brings up the fact like how tall is the hex?
I know, that's what I was just thinking,
Unless it kind
because
of tries to
when they flew
dome
that
it.
drone in the last episode and stuff, I mean, they flew it in through like this, at least up in the sky, but like how high up does it go? The whole way up until like it gets to space and then stops, or is it like a huge wall, or what is it? We don't know, but I guess somehow Hayward probably threw something in space. Maybe that's what Nick Fury's doing. Maybe Nick Fury's accessing this as well. Maybe he's up in space still, up in that tower we saw him in at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home with the scrolls. Maybe he's like in contact with Hayward and sort of helping him find all this stuff. Because I feel like Nick Fury's probably the leader of Sword, but he can't be the director if he's up in space. So that's why Hayward is like the acting director. I
Mm-hmm.
still think something's up with Hayward though, because he didn't tell
Yeah,
Monica and all them any of these things either.
and he's also he is like against all superheroes in general or superpowers in
I,
general.
I don't know what his deal, like, maybe he's not who he says he is either. I've heard someone say, like, what if he's a scroll
Yeah,
impersonating
he could be
Hayward?
one of the bad
But
scrolls. That could start the scroll invasion.
that could be, that's what I was thinking. Like, maybe this is his way of creating the super scrolls, which gives them superpowers. Like when they're inside Wanda's
Hmm.
hex or whatever, that like, maybe they'll get superpowers eventually, and then they can mimic the heroes on Earth, and that's going to start the Secret Wars and all this other stuff. I mean, that kind of makes sense, I guess. But at the same time, I don't think they should be using WandaVision to like promote the other shows or bleed into the other shows. I think it should be its own thing. I mean, I know that's what the MCU does; it connects to other stuff. But I don't think the way to introduce like the scrolls or a group of bad scrolls is through WandaVision. Do it in something like, I don't know, the Loki series or something. But like, I
Well,
think
I feel
that
like
would be,
if we're
that
gonna
kind
talk
of
about
ruins the importance of this show. Another thing they learned also after they hacked Hayward's computer was that Monica's blood cells are changing ever since she went in and went out of the hex. Like both interactions with the sort of the wall that she got ejected out of and even went through is changing
mhm,
her blood cells on like a um,
molecular level.
molecular level.
Yeah,
Thank you. On a molecular level, which I guess is leading into her becoming the hero Photon, which is what she becomes in the comics.
or spectrum. I think is also
Oh
another
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I
She
think.
might have another name.
Well,
It's either No, I think Spectrum was her mom. I
I thought
think.
photon was her mom. Either way,
Yeah.
it's
Either way,
either photon
This
or
is how
spectrum.
she's gonna. This is explaining how she's going to get her powers. I guess. Um, maybe if this is how they introduce the mutants, then maybe they're gonna sort of retcon her getting powers as she is a mutant. She has a mutant gene or something. I'm not
Maybe.
sure, but yeah, I mean that's slowly. And Monica didn't seem too phased by it either. She seemed to like know what she was talking about. Like she was like, "Yeah, I know. I've seen this before. Like blood cells dying and then regenerating, or something along those lines." However, she said it. So it makes me wonder. I guess she already knew she had some kind of power. But if
Or
that's the case,
maybe
like,
she
how did
just
she
knew
get it?
to look for, like, she knew the stuff for the cells because, like, her mom had cancer. Maybe, like, the
Oh,
cell
maybe.
reproduction and stuff like that
That's yeah,
with
that's
cancer
probably
cells.
true.
Maybe.
But I mean, yeah, and we saw it when they were looking at Monica last week in episode 5. They scanned her like bloodstream and her skeleton and all this stuff, and it was just coming up as this like white glow,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
nobody really made any mention of it. So that's kind of what I think in the comics she ends up with powers similar to Carol Danvers, Captain
Mm-hmm.
Marvel. So I guess this is kind of it's almost like this is sort of an origin story for Monica getting her superpowers, while also being a story about Wanda slowly becoming like a villain or something, or going psychotic or
Yeah.
something at the same
Going
time. It's
absolutely
two of those at
crazy.
the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
time. Yeah, which is a cool idea. I mean, if that's
Mm-hmm.
what they are going with. If
Yeah.
not this, then maybe Captain Marvel 2 might like show her with powers officially or something. Because I think she's in Captain Marvel 2, I would assume, since she's all grown up now and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But unless Captain Marvel 2 takes place in the past again, but
Or maybe just, like, straight up completely out in the universe somewhere nobody knows
you know,
about or
where
something,
she's
maybe.
not with any of them, she's
Yeah.
fighting the scroll or the Kree again or something along those lines. Yeah, but I thought that was interesting that she didn't seem too phased by that. And she's like, well, if, or she's like, I know how Wanda thinks and blah, blah, blah. And then she said she's got a way that she's going to get into the hex. And she has a
Yeah.
friend that's bringing her some kind of weapon or maybe a suit or something like that,
Yeah.
that she's going to be able to go back in and be unaffected by it. So I guess, well, so her and Wu left. So we're going to have to see who they're going to find and stuff. Like they drove away, which right after that, of course, leads into Vision tries to leave the hex, just like Wanda did last week. We saw she like opened it up and walked out with their drone and everything else. Vision straight up tries to leave, but on his way out, he starts feeling pain and everything else, and he's starting to be like ripped apart. Like pieces of
Yeah.
him are flying off through
Mm-hmm.
the
Pieces of
back into the
vibranium just going
hex,
back in.
and he's like falling down. He's kind of shouting like, "Help me!" Um, these people need your help and all. And Hayward's just kind of standing there watching this along with some of the other sword agents that are guarding him. And Darcy Lewis reveals that she's back on the base. She comes running up like, why aren't you helping him and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it weird that like he was kind of being torn apart because he is really dead, like it's his dead body. So I thought maybe he was going to lose all his parts that Wanda fixed him with or something, and
I
end up
know, like,
see the
and
hole in his
I
head
think while he
again.
was coming out, he still had the Mind Stone on him.
That's true.
I
I mean,
think,
it's,
yeah,
it's almost like she reanimated the Mind Stone, which if she can recreate Infinity Stones is kind of scary, to
yeah,
be honest.
exactly. Unless,
That just shows.
um, unless she can like, well, okay, listen, big theory coming up here. Okay,
Uh oh,
so
theories.
Thanos reduced the Infinity Stones to atoms, but he didn't destroy them.
No,
So what if Wanda used her powers to increase the size of the Mind Stone and give it back to
I
Vision
mean, I
or
don't know how
something?
she would know where it is, but
I know,
like
just
I've heard that like maybe because she has, because everybody that has the powers of the Infinity or got powers from Infinity Stones probably has some of like the power like emanating from their essence and stuff like that. So they probably she has displayed a lot of the powers of most of the Infinity Stones, not just the Mind Stone that she was created from. Like now she's altering reality and all this other stuff. So it's kind of curious how she got this power. Like we haven't really seen her do that up until this moment. She's pretty much just like messed with people's minds and stuff like that. I mean, I guess she moved. She was able to move things too, like with her, like telekinetically against Thanos and stuff like that. But
mm-hmm.
we haven't seen her do what she's doing in this show, where she's not only taking over people's minds, but like recreating reality around them as well.
Yeah.
But Vision, um, or sorry, Billy, Wanda's son, who has the same powers as Wanda, I guess, the telekinesis, senses Vision's pain. Like he senses that he's in pain, something's going on, so he runs to
Yeah.
tell Wanda. He's like, I don't know where Dad is, but I think he's in pain. He starts seeing all these visions and stuff of
Yeah,
where
he can
Vision
actually
is.
see what we're seeing, like,
Yeah,
on the camera, like they're doing the action scenes and stuff, right?
like it showed
But like
Vision
he
sitting there in the
saw
grass.
that Vision was dying, breaking apart. He saw the army in front of Vision. Like he saw all of that outside of the hex. And that's just nuts.
And he told Wanda that. So what she ends up doing, she expanded the pocket reality, which this just screamed. It felt like a horror movie
Yeah.
because she straight up just expands everything. So everyone, all those sword agents outside get turned. I guess it gets turned into a circus.
Mhm.
So they all get turned into like clowns and stuff like that. Their equipment and everything gets turned into like circus things, such like a circus tent and all. Their headquarters was a circus tent. Their trucks became like an ice cream truck or popcorn
Yeah.
vending thing, something like that.
Everything's like a
And
carnival.
obviously, Wu and Monica noticed this, but they're like too far away because they already drove away. But they see that
Mhm.
it is moving.
Yeah, so they're like,
When I said that, I thought
push
it
the
meant like
gas.
one. Yeah, speed it up a little bit. When they saw that, when they said that, I thought they meant like maybe Wanda was just kind of walking and it was the whole thing was like moving with her, but she was actually just pushing it out more so
Yeah,
that she could
because
so she brought Vision back into it and everybody around there except Hayward, who of course had to escape at the last minute with a group of people. I thought he
yeah, of
got sucked
course.
into it too. I thought that would have been interesting, like Monica having to save him,
Oh
but
god.
he got away, so we don't know where he's gonna go. But
Mhm.
everybody else around there got so now they're all part of this reality, which means there's more people for Wanda to control. And now it's not just Westview anymore because it expanded out. There was like some car dealership that got pulled into the reality and stuff like that, and some fields and things like beyond Westview that got. So she can change reality. We're seeing this now. She's probably going to eventually do it to the whole world, which is what's going to call in Doctor Strange by the end of this. I think he's coming at the end of the series, probably to
Yeah.
like
It's probably
leading to the
part of
movie.
the finale, episode 9. We're calling it.
Oh, and Darcy Lewis got sucked into it too, but we didn't really
Yeah.
see what happened to her. I guess like
Yeah, we
it
didn't
didn't
see
show
what
up in
happened to
time.
her, just like we didn't see what happened to the beekeeper whenever we were getting all
Yeah,
that
we still don't
explanation in
know where
episode
he
4.
is.
We don't know where he is. He's gone. He's I don't know, he's still in the sewer somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, so that shows how powerful Wanda really is, and why she is going. Like she did this herself too. Like she wasn't confused about it afterwards. Like her eyes turned red, and she just basically paused everybody around her and did all this,
Mhm.
made it expand. So it has been her this whole time, even if it is just like she has she has like a separate identity or something like that. I think it's still really like strange and kind of scary. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how much farther out it goes and what Monica is going to be able to do to stop this. It
Mhm.
looks like she's going to try to, but maybe she's going to fail because I think it's going to have to lead into like if Wanda is the villain in Doctor Strange 2, then this is going to have to be no matter what they do, they can't seem to stop her. I feel like
Yeah.
the end of the series isn't going to be they just stop her from taking over Westview and that's it.
Mhm.
But there's still some like long lasting effects that Doctor Strange has to fix. I think she's straight up going to change reality. But let us know what you guys think down in the comments section if you saw this episode. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm still loving this show. It gets better every week. And I
Exactly.
think the episodes are getting a little bit longer too. I hope they go to like just straight up an hour long finale or
Yeah.
something. That would be great.
It probably will be, you know.
And you can definitely tell it's starting to feel like the MCU now,
Mhm.
mixed with sort of like a sci-fi or horror thing too, which is really cool. Like it
Yeah,
started
exactly.
off as like sitcom and like a drama type thing, and now it's branching out into like this horror thing. And it's not even a superhero. It doesn't even feel like a superhero thing, but or a superhero film or anything. But it still feels like the MCU also because we know what's going on now essentially. But
Yeah.
there's still a couple more questions that need answered, like who is Hayward and why does Quicksilver look like that? And stay tuned for next week. We'll review the next episode of WandaVision and every episode after that,
Mhm.
as well as all the other Disney Plus shows. I'm looking forward to that because it's the MCU, it's Marvel. We've been waiting for that for 2 years now since, well, 1 year. Yeah, 2 years, I guess, since Avengers Endgame. So, or I guess since Spider-Man Far From Home, technically. But this is the most recent Marvel thing we've had. So I'm enjoying it. I think Todd's enjoying it.
Definitely.
I hope I hope all of you are enjoying it as well. And take care, everyone.
Subscribe.